to learn a few things, a few facts of history. How these two closely related people with very similar political, economic, cultural values begin to have suspicion about each other. Let us speak truth to power. Let us remind ourselves of a few historical incidents which have led to disunity between these two closely related people. And to do that, I'm going to go to an Isoko historian, one of the most eminent historians in Nigerian history and in African history, Professor Barry Kime. This is what he said when he reflected, speaking in this very hall now, in 2005. Speaking here in this hall, he was invited by the Urhobo Historical Society to speak on the relations of the Urhobo and the Isoko. He was speaking here in this very hall to reflect on the relations between these two people. And this is what he said. I'm going to quote. The events of 1932-1952 concerning the establishment of the Urhobo division by the British colonial government and the desire of the Isoko for a renaming of the division so as to reflect the distinct identity of the Isoko is the central historical moment when division arose between the Isoko and the Urhobo. You don't want to hear this truth. Those who wish to forget the past are condemned to repeating it. I'm going to quote this professor further. The period we are talking about, 1932 to 1952, covered only 20 years of the history of the Isoko and the Urhobo people. 20 years, during which, and I'm quoting here again, during which the British colonial administration refused, by acts of commission and omission, to recognize the separate identity of the Isoko people. 20 years, I'm still quoting, during which the Urhobo leaders, taking advantage of British administrative arrangements, began to orchestrate the claim that the Isoko are Urhobo. I have two more sentences from this professor. I'm quoting here. Within my knowledge, nothing has done more to sour Isoko-Urhobo relations than these developments of those 20 years. It was as if the history of peaceful coexistence and socio-economic activities between various Isoko and Urhobo subgroups was forgotten. You wish to forget the history. I don't wish to forget the history because I don't want to repeat the same errors of the past. And you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So, the demand of the Isoko, particularly from the 1940s and until 1952, was not for a separate division. They didn't want a separate division. They were not asking for a separate division. The exclusive concern from the records, the exclusive concern was for the so-called Urhobo division to be renamed as Isoko-Urhobo division. Just what is in a name? Ask me, what is in a name? All that we are asking for was for the so-called Urhobo division to be renamed as Isoko-Urhobo division. demand on the face of it seems reasonable and fair. However, it was apparently opposed by Urhobo members of the council sitting in Ughelli. They did not support it. On the contrary, they supported the denial by the British provincial resident, Mayor Bowen. Not only did they oppose the change of name, many prominent Urhobo representatives at that council declared that the Isoko were just another clan of the Urhobo. As one of them put it, that Isoko was just a nickname for that part of Urhobo land. At several different moments, different forums, different channels, the Isoko repeated their appeal for a change of the name of the division. This issue was to bedevil the work of the council, the Native Administration Council of that Sogo division, for 20 years. It was what fundamentally soured the relationship between the Urhobo and the Isoko until the establishment of the separate Isoko division in 1952. What is in a name? A name is the construct of identity. We are dealing with identity politics. If people do not have a right to identify themselves as they will, what other right do they have? And you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And those who wish to forget history are condemned to repeating it. I'm going to conclude very quickly. It seems fair from the foregoing to conclude that identity politics is at the heart of the problem of the relationship between the Urhobo and the Isoko. As you and I know, there are two elements to identity. Those who are in the group identify themselves one way. Those who are outside the group will identify that same group another way. That's what we call the in-group and the out-group. You see, in those days, the days of inclusive politics, those who felt left out were encouraged almost automatically to forget that they were people. We were all interested in the game of numbers. To include any group within ourselves, that was the main aim. Sensitivity to the feelings of the groups who were being arbitrarily incorporated was not a major consideration. That's the key word. Sensitivity to the identity of a people and how a people identify themselves. Sensitivity, empathy, respect. This is something that is typical of what we call majoritarian politics. Those who are majors will do everything to oppress minors. We experience it in the Nigerian polity, but I can tell you from the history that it was also happening within the relationship between the Isoko and the Urhobo. You see, what we should be looking at here, cooperation and collaboration, because we have larger political issues to deal with, larger political interests to pursue, and we cannot begin to do this infighting. How are you going to achieve these larger interests if you are fighting yourselves? Even if you are not fighting yourselves openly, but through suspicion. As a psychologist, I know that silent war is almost as deadly as open war. So, you and I know historically that there has never been an open war, never been an open war between the Urhobo as a group and the Isoko as a group. We know that there have been minor skirmishes between different Urhobo groups. For instance, I give you some examples, from here that For instance, there have been some traditions of war between certain Isoko groups and certain Urhobo groups, between Uwero and Enwe and Ibide, for instance, between the Eureni and Emevaga. There have been different kinds of conflicts, like localized conflicts. But that did not involve all of the Urhobo nation, nor all of the Isoko nation. There has never been any open war between these two groups, as groups. That's important. And that tells you something. It tells you that the relationship between these people is so close that the only thing that will prevent the kind of intimacy they require is this subterranean, suspicious way of not recognizing the identity of each one. We have to move beyond that. See? No Isoko-Urhobo conflict can compare with the kind of conflict, for instance, you see in Warri here between Urhobo and Shekiri and so on. So it's almost inevitable that, we should, I won't say further. Let us guard against any future suspicions against each other through forums like this. Let's have open, truthful conversations. Let's not try and bury the past, but let us see how the mistakes of the past can be avoided. Yes, I wholeheartedly support forums and conferences such as the present one. I'm told that this is only the first edition. We should have more and more of such conferences. But let me even add to that. If we are going to foster this, there is no reason why we should not have an Urhobo Isoko Council. Let us have a council of Urhobo Isoko relations, made up of our traditional fathers, our rulers, made up of political figures, of religious figures, even of academics, even of labor people. Let's have a council to examine issues, to plot the way forward. Such a council can meet perhaps once a quarter, no more than about 4 times a year, to consider matters of mutual interest. For example, cultural projects, for instance, history of relations of these people. The Urhobo Historical Society, for instance, has done wonderful things to expose the knowledge of Urhobo nation in the world. There's more knowledge of the Isoko people required, and knowledge of the relationship between these two. We should have projects that deal with the material development of the communities. Roads, hospitals, clinics, schools, centers, industries. And of course, political interests. Let us have a council that will reflect matters of development of these two. And such a council will always watch out for any kinds of disagreements and conflicts that can arise. You see, because conflict and disagreements are inevitable in human relationships. They cannot be totally avoided. What is always possible is if the two people have a spirit of unity and oneness, you openly discuss the matter and find ways of achieving reconciliation. So let us not think, oh, no disagreements can ever happen. They may happen. They will happen. Look at issues of environment, the devil in our communities. Look at unemployment among our young people. The matter of insecurity. Because we know that with a united voice, we can achieve even more. So these are just examples of the kinds of things that a council of this kind can help to bring forward and discuss and find solutions to. So, a lot of good can only come from the collaboration and the positive approach that will cement the relationship between these two people. I don't think I need to speak any further because as one of the leaders, one of the traditional leaders said here, this is not the forum to solve practical problems. this is a forum for all the people, so we can talk openly. But at such a council and at such move, we can begin to discuss intimately the issues. Urhobo, Isoko, Urhobo, Isoko,
Please continue with a round of applause. Very powerful solution. For me, what I picked from what Professor Emego Biakolo said is this. Perhaps it is time we have an Isoko Urhobo Council. What do you all think about that? Correct. You will say aye? We have had a resolution on that one. So that was brilliant. And I love also one point that, please give yourself a round of applause. Not too much, not too much. And then, guess what? I was going to do something interesting, but now that Professor Biakolo has beaten me to it, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So, Professor Biakolo has this book. It's titled The Meaning of Marriage. It's a very powerful book. Sir, Professor, this is my own. I have taken this one. I do what is called book reviews from time to time on Mega 89.1 FM. Actually, it's always on Saturdays by 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. We call it the creative hustle. Then we have something that nobody has been doing in Warri until I came. It's called the Lightweight Books and Literary Society. In that books, yes, what we do is we celebrate everything literature, everything creativity, everything comedy, entertainment, anything that has to do with sculpture, visual art and all of that, we do all of that. Even if you want to publish your book, we also help you. So it's a good opportunity for me to have this book, talk about it, interview him and highlight all that. And right now, so that we can go to the next level.
What's the next one?
Okay, how much? Oh, you have to tell us. Meanwhile, when I say the name where they are, the name where they are Urhobo. Exactly, sir. This is my work. It is a work that took me to many places in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria so that I can write it. For those who know me on radio, I'm a hardcore investigative journalist. I'm a mentor, I'm a trainer, apart from the fact that I'm the general manager of Mega 89.1 FM. I believe in our stories. And I know I'm not applying for me now easy. Multi-international award winner. I am actually known internationally. If you Google my name right now, Urhobo, journalist, Urhobo, general manager, Urhobo, Police Center USA, Urhobo, British Council UK. I did that. Oh yes, it's true. It's just that I don't blow my own too often, but I'm ready to do that nowadays. So this book is actually something that taps into all of us. So if you want it, it's 5,000 naira. I was planning to do something before I introduce the next act. If somebody answers 2 questions, I'm going to give you this book for free. Just 2 questions, I'll give you for free. I should go on. What was our first resolution right now in this meeting?
We must have a council.
What kind of council?
Isoko and Urhobo.
This one is to you, sir. Congratulations to him.
I'm Ojogri Akwewe Maria, the 200 level undergraduate of Obafemi Awolowo University. And the title of my poetry spoken word is The Ones the World Awaits. Take me back to 1,000,000 years ago, where children played on the streets with dirty hands and empty feet. Take me back to a place I long to go, where the laughter and share in the air outweigh the sadness in our hearts and the tears in our eyes, where we move to the sound of the drum in one accord, trusting our fears in God. Oh, Don't you remember when we clustered up at Scavengina to feed our curiosity in our very own cinema? When we took our friends along to our tribal festivals, we didn't care about their ethnicity. Urhobo, Isoko, we danced together, laughed together, ran away from masquerades together.
Tribal festivals, we danced together, ate together without any upheavals. Take me back to our peaceful land. These changes are suffocating to think of. What we would have termed impossible, unfortunately has broken into I am possible. Who would have thought that the very thing we were gifted with by our Creator would turn us into arbiters? No, we don't kill, but we encourage wars. Don't you see the wealth that flows and grows beyond our land? Among the Urhobo and Isoko clan, the palm trees, the fishes, the limestone, the clay, the beautiful rhythm of the music, the dance, the food, the periwinkle, the crude oil. Tell me, who would have thought that we do not realize that the world needs us? Tell me, why do we let these critical marks in our languages defile us? We are one. So why then do we build these walls, creating our walls so high, protecting the same crude oil that will still flow? Not only has our hands been stained with this oil, but so has our hearts. We are the ones the world is waiting for, you and I. We are the ones that will stop a deja vu of 1964 and 1999 crisis. We are the ones that will raise our voices against our ills, pull down the walls created in our hearts, destroy the ideology of racial and ethnic persecution, and build back the city of milk and honey. So if you have the slightest doubt in your heart, I tell you now, as I have said before, we are the ones the world is waiting for. Thank you.
Let me not leave here without having a handshake with you. Thank you very much. When we talk about economy within the Niger Delta, perhaps Urhobo and Isoko is one of the leading persons as far as economy is concerned. So we can't be discussing economic integration without the likes of Gordon's, the comedy Berlusconi. Thank you very much. Ordinarily, I know I would have been able to dwell deeply on economic issues, but based on the matters arising, I will make it as short as possible. Let me start with my brother, Deacon Chris. Deacon Chris, who spoke first. I am happy with the fact that you meandered through history. And I'm equally happy with the meta-analytical approach with which you laid the issues before us. And I think I equally take the issues to you based on some kind of germane points that you have raised. You know, whenever the truth is being spoken, people get a little bit agitated. And the beauty about truth is that truth has kinetic energy. No matter the number of years you lock up the truth in a container, it is capable of exploding. Yes. My great father, Chief Frank Obiekokori, please, I want to draw your attention to the fact that no matter how rough these issues would have been laid before us, is the reason why we have a path to go ahead with. We are in the course of trying to heal wounds so that we can function together as one body. So at times, by the age-long emotions, by the age-long feelings and perceptions that we have had, there is a tendency that some persons might be let loose and they say it the way they feel it. And that's why I've said I will always zero back to Deacon Chris, who said that in the course of trying to put this particular meeting together, he conducted, knowingly or unknowingly, a research that was able to establish the fact that there are a bundle of mistrust. There are a bundle of misgivings arising from this age-long natural unity that would have ordinarily existed amongst a people. And he was quick to raising a question. And what was his question? He said, what is needed for effective partnership as far as Urhobos and Isokos are concerned? Deacon Krista, on this note, I will be leaving you with another burden. Perhaps another conference where we will discuss these issues the way they are, not in an amorphous manner. Yes. So that we'll be able to have a point of departure into the new Urhobo-Isoko unity that is largely touted and is largely needed. But before we go to that aspect, let me quickly respond to that question you raised, that what is needed for effective partnership. Simple. We must be willing to build on our social capital. And what is this social capital? Integrity must be emphasized. There has been high-grade political mistrust. There has been a high-grade deficiency of political trust. There has been high-grade political lack of integrity. And that is why there is that high sense of suspicion whenever we encounter ourselves within the political arena. We are interested in that because whatever we do today is politically driven. That we develop our landscape is a function of the political milieu that we find ourselves. That we are able to develop ourselves economically is a function of the political circumstance we find ourselves. That we are able to develop ourselves socially is a function of the political milieu we find ourselves. And as a result, that political trust must be re-established. If not, I tell you, my dear brother, that even when we have a discussion from now till tomorrow, it will end up with nothing. That is the truth and nothing but the truth. There must be honesty in this discourse. Again, we must develop capacity to respect the inherent sovereignty in each of these groups. If we can respect the inherent and God-given sovereignty between the Urhobos and the Isokos, then something awaits us ahead. I take on the Nigerian space generally at the micro level of analysis. The only reason why today we feel bad about the structure called Nigeria, it is because the sovereignty of the various nationalities is highly disrespected by some who believe that they are major groups within the entity called Nigeria. So not until that is addressed, definitely issues hovers around us. Let's have it as a thought, as a take-home, that in the course of trying to drive or resuscitate this age-long unity that we'll talk about, we must be able to respect our individual sovereignty. Having said that, knowing very well that not until all of these are properly handled, I tell you, economic boom will continue to be something we just put in illusion. We must respect ourselves, we must show integrity, we must show trust before I can do business with my brother and be happy that something good is going to come out of it. We all know it, that whenever you are in transaction with one of those entities that make up Nigeria, we've always done that with high sense of suspicion. We know them. It therefore means that you can't actually discuss economy not until we know so well that there is deep sense of trust and honesty. It's only then that we can discuss economy. And Isoko man will be willing to do business with an Urhobo man. But the business, is it likely going to be the relationship of cat and dog, one eating up the other, without showing trust, without showing honesty? It therefore means that it's not possible. The only way we can have an operational economy that will be beneficial to all of us is that we're able to establish that sense of honesty. It's important. Why do we discuss economic integration, which is necessary for us to be able to develop ourselves technologically, scientifically, and otherwise? Is very, very key. Especially when we live in an era where the likes of Mark Namara, one time chairman of the board of the World Bank, had told us that here in Africa, Africa lives in what he referred to as absolute poverty. And if Africa lives in absolute poverty, it therefore means that we must take urgent steps to be able to reintegrate ourselves economically and move out of that poverty zone to a zone of robust economic practices and where we look forward to bountiful harvest. Integration is key. Yesterday I was with the UPU Deputy Vice President General, and we were discussing issues that has to do with integration. Integration as far back as 1957 in Addis Ababa, African nation states gathered, led by Kwame Nkrumah, the then Ghanaian president, and he talked about integration of Africa. And some persons went and blabbed over it, and at the end of the day, is the reason why somebody like Tony Blair, one time British Prime Minister, mentioned that Africa is a scar in the conscience of humanity. And why is Africa a scar? Because Africa is poverty-ridden, so on a daily basis you see Africa begging for AIDS. Africa has become the charity center of the world. May God forgive, may God help us so that Urhobo Isoko will not be the charity domain of our Delta, the charity domain of the nation called Nigeria. Amen. For us to economically integrate, we must be sensitive to the market circumstance that we have. Just some days ago, perhaps weeks ago, the Onion Sellers Association of Nigeria and the Cattle Rearers Association of Nigeria made a declaration, a threat declaration, that if we are not careful, in no time we won't be having onion to buy in other parts of the world, of Nigeria. If we are not careful, if we are not mindful of the utterances that we make, in no time there will be no cattle, there will be no nama meat for people in other parts of Nigeria. And when that threat came up, in the usual Nigerian pattern of always discussing on TV, discussing on radio, the AGROs and their likes. Sorry, my dear sister. Oh, these people have come again. And these particular threats were treated with trivialities in the normal Nigerian way. But I tell you, for me as a strategist, for me as an entrepreneur, it was an opportunity for us. I never looked at this issue from a trivial perspective. Urhobo, Isoko, I charge you today, our economic integration is going to start from planting onions. Our economic integration is going to start from rearing cattle. Do you know why? In recent time, technology has taken us to the extent where we can grow grass in labs. We can grow grass in our homes, more than even the ones you plant on a daily basis. If that be the case, then there's no reason for anybody to threaten us that you are withdrawing your cattle. We will economically integrate here, and we have sufficient cattle to be able to make market available to the entire sub-region. And we will do it in a more scientific manner. I tell you, we know that we have oil in common. If you look at the banners that are before us, oil is dominant there. But I'm equally thinking that we should move fast in a season where the world is beginning to discuss earth metals, our focus should not be about oil and my mind. In a season where the world is beginning to discuss about classical entertainment, we shouldn't be focusing on oil. At a time, an American president, Jimmy Carter, charged the Americans to explore the entertainment world. And that was why, in the days of Michael Jackson of blessed memory, when he came up with Thriller, Gordon, you are aware of that. The American president, as it were, he said, this is American dream come true. If we have the likes of Gordon in our midst, Gordon, why didn't you come with Bobby today? I made bold to charge you today, Gordon, that in the area of entertainment, when we discuss economic integration, you and Bobby should take the lead. I am happy you're already partnering with Ejiro, my younger sister here, and I am sure that that area will work out well for us. It's a massive sector. If you discuss Hollywood in America, the GDP of Hollywood to the American economy, perhaps within the Californian area, it runs into trillions of dollars. And if we're able to harness using this, our brothers that are already taking the lead, I bet you the integration will be an interesting one. I draw your attention to one integration that has worked out so well around our world, the European Union integration, economic integration. The European Union economic integration has started after the Second World War, where the whole of Europe was brought down in rubbles, where the industries went flat, and they had a thought, what do we do to be able to reinvigorate ourselves, resuscitate ourselves into a leading economy in our world? And by 1951, they started with the coal sector, the coal and steel sector. And they had to form what they call the Economic Community of Coal and Steel Manufacturers. And I tell you, before long, by 1957, there was a need for other industries to come into it, especially the atomic energy industry. And it went on and on and on until about 1994, it became the EU of today. The EU of today started with 27 nations of the European context. And by the year 2004, it has grown to a union of about 37 different nations that make up the EU. And they have today the leading economy of the world, to the extent that the GDP of the EU alone is up to $16 trillion. Do you know what we refer to as $16 trillion in terms of GDP? It therefore means that you can bring down the whole of Delta State and begin to rebuild it, and there will still be leftover. There will be change for people to take home. That is the beauty of economic integration. So, Urhobo Isoko, if we are looking forward to development, there is a need for us to be able to identify all of those areas that eventually make us to be a leading economy, not just in Nigeria, but within the African sub-region. We have a whole lot to share. Is it about tourism? We used to know the Ethiop River at the Abraka end of old. It was a place where on weekends people go in and they play around. What has happened to all of this? Yesterday, I was at Oria Abraka, the Maritime College there, Academy. It's a sight to behold. You need to see the undulating nature of that place. It's just like when we travel down to the old Roman setting that was surrounded by Alps, ups and downs. People leave Nigeria on a daily basis, travel to Dubai. People leave Nigeria on a daily basis, travel to the Philippines. People leave Nigeria on a daily basis, travel to the Barbados. Meanwhile, we have our own home Barbados here. We have our own home Philippines here. We have our own Dubai around us here. Urhobo Isoko, what are we doing? Let's charge ourselves. Let me be quick are certain areas where we can commonly fraternize in terms of economic integration, beyond the ones that I've just mentioned. We can fraternize economically in area of education. We can fraternize in area of religious entrepreneurship. After all, we have bishops here. If there is one thing that is known to us in terms of the energy for religious activities, anointing is surplus within us, Urhobos and Isokos. We all saw it here. You saw the two musicians that came, Isoko and Urhobo. They were loaded, and is enough to be packaged as a product and can be sold around the world. Our religious, the bishop, and as many pastors as possible that are here, we must take advantage of our population and the fact that the anointing is more around us. After all, we're told that in the whole of this African continent, the only place where Bible fell, which means it came direct from heaven, was in Isoko land. The economy of the Yoruba land has been revolutionized because of churches there. We have the Kumuis, we have the Redeemed Setting, we have the Winners Church. Do you know what they take home, both primarily and secondarily, whenever they have their normal gatherings? Go to Redemption Camp and see what they have on daily basis because of ancillary business activities that are ongoing within those camps. It is important that we must be able to key into all of this as a way of revolutionizing the economic activities within Urhobo and Isoko nationalities. It's important. Let me conclude by saying that if we have to reflect on what McNamara had talked about in terms of absolute poverty, our very dear big daddy here in Africa, Nelson Mandela, had told us that poverty, slavery, and apartheid that they suffer, they are children of the same parents. They are not from the heavens, rather they are man-made. And as a result, if they are man-made, the only way, I repeat, the only way we can push poverty to the periphery, as far as the Urhobos and Isokos are concerned, is to be involved in economic integration. Thank you very much.
I expected a louder hand clap from Prof. Because of our poor health settle. Little did she know that God had equipped us with antigens that can survive anything. You don't get what the bring will be here. Because God will not give you what you cannot bear. We are not that developed. So God equipped us. Nothing. That's why you discover when malaria came, we survived. When typhoid came, we survived. When bird flu came, we ate both the bird and the flu. Hello? When I'm not there yet, just the way you will see if I want to do like this, my mama go say, hold the neck. We go kill and eat as if they here. Abi? Nothing. When Ebola come, did we not survive? Did we not survive? What about HIV? Crack, old creek bottom, sweetie. Am I surviving? No, what if you COVID-19? COVID-19 is small picking. Where HIV come? See, if you go do tests and you pass, you don't go give thanksgiving. Because I don't go do HIV before, they say I don't get HIV, but I get trypanosomiasis. I say, praise God. So anybody here who is alive today, clap your hands for God. And all these white brothers, they try to confuse us. Hydrochloroquine. What is the difference between hydrochloroquine and rechloroquine? If you've been delta, you don't experience the manifestation of chloroquine, then you will know that the hydro is a play. If you want cross when you call like this, you go first look here first. If you hear papa, you say they go back. You go back, you go come again, hear papa. You let the fact appear the lie. That okri when I grow up to meet. Now who's go the member? They make noise. Okay, if they complain, you know the family. Then you hear. Before that, I don't forget, say, I know my work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk about the unity of Isoko and Urhobo briefly. And to do this, we have to discuss about the things that brought us together. To do this, permit me to hand over the microphone to the Deputy President of the UPU General, Captain Anthony Onogarigo. Please, let's give him a round of applause as he comes to talk about the unity of Isoko and Urhobo, the things that brought us. If you clap louder, he will donate money. Put your hands together.
Oh, everything has been said today. All that I want to present has been presented. But this topic, I made up my mind to do it in a different way. Ajowe. I didn't. I am no. Getting it. Take me still Bukulai. Gordon. The major know my name. My name is, let's say, Chief Captain Anthony Onogarigo, PhD. We are had to ask PhD because we have some medical doctors like Igorojes here. He's a medical doctor. I have a PhD in transport geography and major in maritime. My President General, let me just stay on the existing protocol because many people have been, calling different names. I will go on the existing protocol. I want to first of all thank the organizers of this conference. But my President General passed a small message, which I will just read part of it, and I will discuss it one by one as I'm going. Don't mind my voice. I'll be stressed up somehow for some time now because of UPU work. The President General of Urhobo Progressive, UPU worldwide, Lord Dr. Moses Oheremetaga, send his warm and sincere felicitations. He would have loved to be here with us today, but from some exigencies of duty, he's not here. However, his spirit is here with us. Let me join the organizer to formally welcome everybody, every one of us, to all the important summit. I have no doubt whatsoever that it is coming up at the most auspicious time, a deep time, and sober reflection. The UPU, and indeed Urhobo Nation, is very pleased with the organizers of this conference. I hereby declare categorically and unequivocally that we are in total support of every decision and decisions that were emerged from it. Furthermore, we want to assure you that we do everything humanly possible within our power to ensure that every of the decisions taken here today are executed to the letter. The various distinguished speakers have brilliantly and eloquently dedicated the age long bond and affinity between the Urhobo and Isoko people. It is established further that we are one, a people of common heritage. The fact is incontrovertible and is not a subject of debate. Indeed, the two nations have virtually everything in common. I think you agree with me on that, because I don't see myself as only Urhobo man. I see myself as Urhobo and Isoko man. If you come to most of my establishments, I have so many Isoko people in it. Even yesterday, my PA, I introduced him to the President General of Isoko when he came yesterday. He's my personal assistant and my special assistant. He's an Isoko man. His name is Friday. And if you go, I still go further by saying that when my school wanted to get an accreditation to run marine engineering, I have to get a very big laboratory. I want to make an emphasis on how we're related. How we've been helping ourselves for a long time, and those help should continue to exist. I went to Zoro Polytechnic and said, look, I have a school, please give me your laboratory and let's have a common understanding. He never denied me. They gave me an MOU and we have a common understanding to train together. And that MOU helped me to get MBT accreditation for marine engineering. Today we are still looking at working together. Every Isoko man and Urhobo man, we are one. Sometimes I hear Isoko. I say Isoko man loves us. Isoko man loves us a lot. If you go by what they have just said, the former speaker, someone have made some speech. They never say we will fight ourselves one day. Other communities go ahead and start making trouble after small issues, minor issues that could not cause fight. But Isoko